Hi, welcome aboard. Once again, we have a full show for you this week. A little later, we'll be visiting the beautiful Whitsundays and doing some sailing. And we'll also be looking at a brand spanking new marine safety device. But first up, last week we showed you the 1998 annual Honda Marine Dealers Conference, which was held at Sanctuary Cove, one of the features of which was the release of the new 115 and 130 horsepower Honda outboard motors. This week, we're going to look at the motors in detail. I always place a lot of store in first impressions at whatever I may be looking at, and we've just hopped into this Signature 540, which is identical to our camera boat, fitted with a new 130 horsepower four-stroke Honda. Now, my first impressions are that the engine started easily, but quite remarkably, the idle is remarkably smooth compared to the 90 that is fitted to my camera boat. Now, the 90 horsepower is a 1600cc unit based on the Honda Civic. This unit, the 115 and 130s, are still 4 cylinders, but they're 2.25 litres based on the Honda Accord. And I guess that you could use that as being a comparison between the two engines. Now, these engines feature a double counterweighted crankshaft, which is the first for a marine unit. And I guess that has a lot to do with the smoothness of the engine. And vibration in a boat is of great interest to me because if a boat vibrates too much, it certainly impairs our ability to shoot smooth film. But we've just come up to about 1,500 revs per minute as we idle out of the Sanctuary Cove precinct here. There is little or no engine noise. In fact, I can't hear any more noise from the engine than I would expect in a car. Most of the noise that you can hear as background, if you can hear any at all, is generated by the water slapping on the bottom of the hull. We just went across a wash there and you can hear the water. Now we'll just accelerate a little further up to 2,500 revs. The boat has lifted her nose. Obviously she's just about ready to come up on the plane. We'll just wait for a little boat to go past there. Again, the noise level hasn't appreciably increased. We'll take her up to 3,500, 4,000 revs per minute. The boat is accelerating quite strongly onto the plane, and again, that's an interesting feeling because as you accelerate in this boat, it gives you a feeling of quite definite and positive acceleration. This boat really gets up and goes. Now we're at 4,000 revs. I'm still talking in what amounts to normal tones. In fact, the only reason my voice is up a bit is to overcome the water noise on the boat. We'll accelerate up to 5,000, trim out a little, and we're up to 5,250 revs. The only noise you can hear from that engine is intake roar, which is extremely efficiently muffled anyhow, but it's impossible to get rid of it completely. We're just coming up with a little bit of trim. We're coming up to 5,500 revs. The intake roar is settled in. But in spite of the fact that these engines demonstrate quite astonishing fuel economy, I can't see anybody needing to drive these boats at more than about 4,000 revs per minute unless they're looking at pulling a water skier. Just turn around and have a look. We can go around here. The boat behaves superbly, and I'm particularly impressed with the acceleration out of the hull. This boat really gets up and goes. It's got an entirely different feel to my 540 with the 90, which is still more than acceptable.
Now, as far as engine specifications are concerned, the two engines share a common 2,254cc capacity in 4 cylinders with 16 valves and a single overhead camshaft. Now, they inherit the crankshaft, the conrods and the valve train from the Honda Accord. The rest of the engine is entirely new, and the entire engine is made by Honda, including the lower unit and the gearbox. The great advantage of inheriting that crankshaft from the Accord is the fact that Honda spent a large amount of time, several years as a matter of fact, in developing counterweights to balance the crankshafts of their 4-cylinder engines to make them as smooth as 6 cylinders or V8s, and the outboards inherit that crankshaft. Now, one of the interesting features of the engine is that the flywheel is mounted beneath the power head rather than the common position on top. That again makes the engine smoother. It minimises harmonics and torsion within the crankshaft, and it moves the centre of gravity of the engine much lower, again making it more stable. The entire engine is coated with a 4-layer protective coating, again developed by Honda, and it features a self-diagnosing program fuel injection and engine control unit system, which are interlinked, so you get the right mixture, the right acceleration rate. All aspects of the engine's operation are computer controlled. It has a 100-hour or 6-month between service period, which extends it quite considerably. And the engines have been designed to meet US environmental emission standards for the year 2006, which involve a 75% reduction of emission standards over those of 1997. The alternator charges at 40 amps, and it's available with counter-rotating props and long and extra long shafts. The engines weigh 208 kilos dry. Now, Honda have done some comparisons between 130 horsepower two-stroke and the 130 horsepower Honda, and the results are really quite remarkable. On a given amount of fuel at wide open throttle, in other words at top speed on similar boats, the Honda went 42% farther than the two-stroke. At cruise it went 35% farther, and at trolling, which is where a lot of these engines will be used, it went an amazing 300% farther than the two-stroke on a given amount of fuel, and it's designed to idle at 750 revs per minute. Now, the advent of these engines, as I said last week, brings the availability of four-stroke Honda power to a far greater range of boats by allowing them to be fitted in singles or pairs to boats up to around about 23 or 24 feet long, and those great advantages of fuel consumption and smooth, quiet power with low emissions will move much further through the spectrum of boating users.
You've just seen a man fall overboard. Now, obviously that was done under controlled circumstances. We knew what had happened. But the possibility of losing a person off a boat, regardless of the sea conditions, the weather, or the location of the boat, must be the concern of anybody who skippers a boat of any size or type. It can happen without warning. It can happen very easily. We, as a race, really love the water in all of its permutations, from a goldfish bowl with a fish in it right through to ocean like that out there with marlin in it. Whether we swim in it, whether we dive underneath it and enjoy the underwater world. The fact is that if you're not prepared for it, if it's unexpected, and if you can't swim, or if you go overboard disabled, you can very quickly die. And that applies also to domestic swimming pools. As we know, there are compulsory fences around swimming pools to try and stop children from being drowned, and yet that still happens. So the water has to be treated with great respect. Now, also, a skipper on a boat is responsible for everything that happens on that boat, regardless of whether it's a tiny little dinghy that he's rowing with a pair of oars or an ocean liner. The responsibilities of the skipper remain the same. But it's not always possible for people on a boat to keep an eye on the other people on the boat all the time. And it's always possible, whether you're inshore or offshore, to lose somebody overboard. Now, obviously there are circumstances where that can happen due to carelessness and stupidity. I often see boats running along with kids sitting on the bow with their legs dangling over. They can easily fall off if the boat jolts, and if they do, they go under the boat and get chewed up by the propeller. That's a ridiculous thing to do. Or somebody standing up in the back of a powerful boat, the skipper pushes the throttle forward and the boat simply accelerates out from under who's ever standing in the back, and they're over the back. And in fact, I've been overboard twice accidentally. Once was in a runabout where I was sitting on the back seat. The driver pulled it around into a hard left-hand turn. The guy who was sitting next to me on the left-hand side of the boat lost his grip, cannoned into me, grabbed me and took us both overboard. The boat was 2 kilometres up the river before the skipper realised we were gone. The other time was down in the Southern Ocean off Tasmania, where I was flicked off the top of the mast of my old ship, the Derwent Hunter, by a wave, and everybody saw me go. They threw me a life raft, they picked me up 20 minutes later, and the skipper had the presence of mind to drape me over the engine to overcome the hypothermia. But at any time, day or night, you do have a problem, you have a potential problem of losing somebody overboard. If it's in the ocean at night time, you can pretty well not worry about it unless you have a new device which is about to come on the market and which overcomes the problems. Now, the device is called EMSA, for Emergency Marine Personal Safety Alarm. And as its name suggests, it is an alarm system which consists of two components. One is a receiver which is mounted on the dash of the boat or in the cabin near wherever the person on watch may be, usually near the helm. And the other is a transmitter. Now, the transmitter is very compact. It is carried by the crew on the boat, by each individual member of the crew has one each of these transmitters. It can be clipped onto your belt, it can be attached to a life jacket, it can even be fixed inside a cap, providing the cap is fixed to your head and can't come off when you go overboard. And it's set up so that when the units are not in use, they're clipped onto the receiver and they're kept on charge. When they are in use, they're carried around, and the minute the unit comes in contact with water, whether it be going overboard into the water or even contacting wet clothing, the alarm on the receiver is sounded. Now, it's quite a loud one, as you can hear from here, and it certainly alerts everybody to the fact that somebody has gone overboard. Now, it has a range of around about 80 metres, which means that if the alarm stops sounding, if it goes off and then stops, you are further than 80 metres away from the person in the water. That considerably narrows and makes compact the search area for the person overboard, whether it be by day or by night, and contributes to the overall safety aspects of the EMSA. Now, you can have as many transmitters as you like. In fact, individual crew members can have their own transmitters, regardless of how many crew members there may be. And it can also be interfaced with certain GPS units, so that the minute the alarm sounds, the position of the GPS at that time is fixed, and again, that narrows the search area. Now, it seems to me that my first interest in this was because of the orientation of Leisure World, was the marine application. But there are around about 900 people drowned every 2 years in Australia, 300 or so of them being children in domestic swimming pools, regardless of the fact that we have fences, compulsory fences around them. And it seems to me on reflection that whilst it has applications for yacht races, for individual yachties, for people who sail in any type of boat in open or closed waters around Australia and indeed around the world, that ultimately EMSA's main safety application will be in the domestic situation, where if you have swimming pools or dams or creeks or rivers near your house, you can clip one onto the belt or into the nappy or in the shirt of your little child. If they get wet for any reason, the alarm will sound, alerting you to the problem, and you can save a lot of those problems that we've been having. Now, it is an interesting device. It's one of those devices which has an element of simplicity that make it reliable and relevant to the marketplace. There's certainly nothing complicated about it. It's brilliantly designed and thought up by Grant Trumper, who was the originator of it. Grant spent a lot of time at sea in the Gulf on trawlers. He's done a lot of game fishing, and he understands the problems that can arise from people going overboard. And it also has applications all over the world. There is nowhere in the world in which EMSA would not be directly relevant. Now, I'm sure regular viewers of Leisure World know that we strive to not only help Australians buy back the farm, but to keep intellectual property and values that are generated by Australians in Australia. And that's not at all easy. EMSA has had about $150,000 spent upon it, getting it ready for production. The unit you're looking at now is the production-ready unit. It's ready to be put into production. EMSA is looking for a venture partner or an investor who will support the unit into production, and also an intensive marketing campaign both in Australia and around the world. They have a comprehensive business plan in place which identifies all of their markets, numbers, the whole thing. It's all been done. All the work's been done. All they need now is to get into production. I would certainly like to see it stay in Australia. I would like to see Australia and Australians reap the benefits and the values of EMSA. If you would like to be involved, if you can support it, give me a call on the number that comes up at the end of the show. Over the last 25 years or so, bareboating or skipper yourself chartering has become a very popular pastime in Australia, and there are bareboats on almost every waterway around the country, but probably the most prominent are the bareboat operators in the Whitsundays. Now, over the years, the type of boats that have been offered for bareboating has been refined, not only by the bareboat operators themselves, but also by the boat manufacturers, those who listen to what the bareboat operators say. And during 1997, we were able to form an association between Whitsunday Escape, which is based at April Point Marina in the Whitsundays, and Sea Venture Home Cruises. The boats are built on the Tweed River, just on the New South Wales-Queensland border. Now, Sea Venture Home Cruises have been evolved over a number of years to represent a combination of houseboat, as far as its accommodation is concerned, and a proper offshore cruising boat, as far as her hull performance, seaworthiness and safety are concerned. And the combination really is a brilliant one. These truly are superb boats, and the one you're looking at now is running on Lake Macquarie. It's being chartered down there. And the one you're looking at now is being built specifically for Whitsunday Escape in Sea Venture's factory on the Tweed. Now, it's a 47-footer, and this particular boat was the first boat to be built with a power system other than four-stroke outboards. In fact, this was fitted with a pair of Volvo inboard diesels with sail drives, and after launching on the Tweed River, it negotiated the Tweed Bar and made the ocean passage to the Whitsundays with no problems whatsoever. Now, the skipper for the trip was John Webb from Whitsunday Escape.
When we contacted Sea Venture, we spoke to Donnie and Stuart and Gary down there, and we saw that they were doing them in a mould. It was solid glass. They weren't shortchanged on the engines. They put in a decent sized motor to push it along, and everything was done as it should be in a marine industry.
Now, but you applied your experience to that boat and requested a number of changes as well, didn't you, to make it more suitable for up here?
That's right. There's a lot of things where you can get a brand new boat and it looks absolutely fantastic. You take it out on the water and little niggly things like hatches open the wrong way. You might have a problem with the water, so immediately on these boats you can see exactly where everything is. Everything's labelled. It's nice and clear, and that's what charterers require. It's no good giving them something which is complicated.
No.
And that's not certainly saying that charterers can't understand anything that's complicated, but they're up here for a holiday, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Now, the introduction of the Sea Venture by Whitsunday Escape into the area was so successful that they immediately started seeking another boat. As a result of that, one of the boats from the Lake Macquarie area, an outboard powered boat by the way, was taken by sea to the Whitsundays, and Whitsunday Escape now have two Sea Ventures among their large fleet of a variety of boats. Now, these boats include a Crowther 33 catamaran, a sailing catamaran for those who like to sail and to sail upright, plus large cruisers, monohull sailing boats, and a whole range of various boats to suit everybody's tastes. And I asked Ian Chant of Whitsunday Escape what the future for the company is.
We're fairly positive about our future. We're very positive about the area. Last year it was rated, the area, the Whitsundays, is rated as one of the top destinations in Australia. There are sections of the Whitsundays that are rated among the top in the world for holidays. With the interest in Australia the Olympics are going to provide over the next 5 years, we're very, very positive. We're certainly positive about our company. We have a business plan that is in place. We now have what we think is a good mix of vessels. We can cater for all types, and we think we're ideally placed to take advantage of when people rediscover Australia through the Olympics, and as Australians discover the area.
Well, that's about it for episode 910 of Chris Conroy's Leisure World. But before I go, apologies to all of those people who are watching for our Foster Tourism segment, which I announced last week. We ran out of time for it in this week's show, but it will be in next week, along with all of our usual content. That wraps us for another week. We'll see you next week with another show. In the meantime, take care and safe boating.